This is the Erin Cruz Show. Politics for the people and by the people. With your host, Erin Cruz.
Welcome to the Erin Cruz Show. We have on with us a very special guest. He is running for Assembly District number 20. His name is Joseph Ricard. I can't even pronounce it. It sounds so eloquent. As a matter of fact, that he's a brilliant man. I'm not even going to go into his entire CV. I'm going to let you go to his website. Don't get embarrassed. It's true. You know, I do believe people need to take a look at the candidates. They need to learn about you and others. But really, I want to just give a little bit of an excerpt. Joseph, he likes to call himself Joe from what I see, he is a scientist and a scholar who has worked at some of the most prestigious laboratories in the United States of America. And one can see from looking very closely at his website that he has a lot to say about the current issues, especially Measure 20, Measure 3. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of information you can glean from the issues just by looking at his website. And I say that a couple of times because so often times you go to these websites of candidates and you can't get any information. You can't really understand where individuals are coming from. And there's no secret with Joe. And as a matter of fact, before we go into why he's running and all of this, Joe, you were faced with an incredible situation just the other day, weren't you? I saw on Mercury News. Tell us about that.
Now that I look back on it, I'm still getting over it, I think. We were at a festival in the Castro Valley area when a man came up and attacked our booth. And then he attacked or tried to attack my colleague, Rudy Peters, who's running for Congress in the 15th District. Rudy chased him down the alleyway there where the other booths were, and then the man spun around and pulled a knife on Rudy. So I think it was Rudy's military training that kicked in because he was right on top of it.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, you don't expect that sort of thing. You know, we live in what we see as a polite society. Society where you can go out and speak freely, especially here in the United States of America, and go to these sorts of fairs and share information, something you can't do in other countries.
Right.
And you exercise those freedoms, those liberties, and you don't expect this sort of thing. I mean, what went through your mind? Was it just surreal?
It was actually, I would say it was surreal because, as you say, you don't expect this, and then there's an odd background of normalcy. Everything happens so quickly, most people don't even respond. And Rudy was I think the perpetrator didn't expect Rudy to react so quickly. And if he had
become the chaser, right?
Yes, and he caught up with him and he spun him around, and I think it was that got people's attention, and then the police eventually showed up and they were able to capture the fellow.
And it was
otherwise he could have just melted into the crowd and we would never have found him.
Wow. Yeah, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'll share the article. I shared the article on Twitter just a few minutes ago. I know we're pre-recording this for tomorrow. Our show airs tomorrow night. But I think it's so important to talk about safety in our communities. Mm-hmm. Anything and everything could happen to you, to me, to anyone. And it's important we have individuals like yourself and you know, the other congressional candidate who was brave enough to take action at that moment. It's just a strange day and age here in America. And I'm just so glad to see that you're out there campaigning. You're now here with us. You're not stopping. You're not letting this get in your way at all.
No, not at all. So Rudy and I are going to press ahead. We're campaigning together because my district is entirely contained within his. Oh, so we team up in this part of Alameda County.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you're pairing up and working with the constituency there.
Yes.
You know, the voters are faced with some tough choices this election cycle, and I think that it's good that we have fresh blood, so to speak, clear minds that have perspective, real world problem solvers, and that's what you are. I read in your website you're still writing articles and helping solve some of today's problems on a different level, of course.
Yeah, mathematical problems. If that's an important, I don't know if that's so important, but yeah, mathematics is my background.
Right.
But no, I wanted to run just to kind of figure out how the system really works.
Right.
You often hear that, oh, it's the swamp or it's the money in politics, but until you actually experience it, of course, you've been a candidate, so you know some of that.
Right.
But I think the average voter never really encounters exactly how the whole system works.
It's quite comprehensive.
Pardon?
It's a very large process in entirety, from deciding to run all the way up until where you are. It's quite a lot to take in.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that essentially there's a huge amount of money sloshing around in politics, particularly in California, where the districts are so large. A state Senate district is bigger than a congressional district here.
Right.
And even an assembly district, mine is 400,000 people, which is enormous.
Right. It's a very large area.
Yeah. And what the incumbents do is I've looked at this now. The numbers are available online, but it takes a lot of analysis to distill it down and find out what's really going on. My opponent collects 90% of his $600,000 every election from PACs. Some of these are labor union PACs, and others are big business PACs, and they're all located outside of his district. From the district, he only gets about $30,000 in donations from individuals, and then another $30,000 from outside the district, individuals. And my question is really, where does the money go? I mean, what in the world do you do with $500,000 in this district? I never see him campaigning. There are no lawn signs out. You can't spend $500,000 on lawn signs. They're only $1 a piece in quantity. So I just can't understand, where does the money really go? It's just amazing.
It is amazing, and I'm not sure which kind of PACs you're talking about, but in many cases these PACs spend money on people, for people. They don't actually hand them money, but they're spending these funds on advertisements or different kinds of materials, spreading the word about people. And this big money you're talking about with the PAC.
Well, I beg to differ you right there. Okay, California State Council of Laborers, California State Council of Service Employees, that's 2 labor unions, but also Calpine, which is a big fossil fuel energy company, Edison International, another one.
So they contributed directly to him? They
contributed to him, yes. In this cycle, each one of those agent groups donated the max, which would be $8,800.
Right.
And
I don't see why it's not. I don't see why it's not capped at an individual rate. I mean,
well, I don't see what the money is there for in the first place. That's it. I mean, you simply can't spend that much money to actually advertise. There is no advertising here because we're part of a huge metropolitan television area. So if you were to advertise on one of the major networks, it would be not cost effective because you'd broadcast over the entire San Francisco Bay. So he can't do that kind of advertising. I have yet to see any lawn signs out. So I don't know where does the $500,000 go. And it's the same way with the state senator Wikowski, who's running in this area. He collects even more money being a state senator, and a lot of it comes from these special interest groups. I have no problem with the labor unions or the companies. They're allowed to make the contribution. But my question is, what does the incumbent need that amount of money for? And of course, a person like myself, I have no chance of raising any of that money because none of these big organizations would risk contributing money to a challenger. The incumbents are really protected. It's kind of an insurance that they have. They could spend the money against me, but they don't really have to because they
But they
know.
don't want to because they don't want to get your name out there. That's
That's
part of
exactly
it.
right.
It's
And
tactical. It's definitely strategic. So now, getting down to the issues, because that's really, I'm finding, with this information age, with the internet, with the ability for people to find out and Google who you are, what you want to do, or what you'd like to do. Now I'm seeing that people who are maybe don't associate with the progressive left ideologies are coming and they're starting to think for themselves, these people aren't serving me and what I want, my interests. They're not working for the people. They're not working for families and hardworking individuals. Get rid of the D and the R. I think that the people want to say, who's going to do the job? Who's going to listen to what I have to say? So for those individuals who are coming to you saying, hey, Joe, what is it that you'd like to do, different and better?
Okay, well, I'll tell you one thing that my opponent won't do different. Okay, he votes 98% of the time with the Speaker of the House in the State Assembly. And the reason he does so is either he's lazy or he doesn't want to jeopardize that $500,000 in contributions, because you can believe that the labor unions and the big corporations are not going to want to disturb the state party, which is where the real power is.
Right.
So as long as he does the party line, even if it's bad for the people in our district, he'll go that way. And the prime example, for example, is the gas tax behind me.
Right.
This is a working district. Everybody here commutes to work. They put lots of miles on their car. And this guy votes to raise the gas tax.
Taking food off of people's tables.
Yes, $800 or $779 is what they estimate. And I believe those numbers because I've already paid vehicle registration fees, which increased as well. And on my 20-year-old Toyota, it went up from $75 to about $250. So that's a big chunk of money that you don't expect to pay. Similarly, the incumbent goes along with the party line to put Regional Measure 3 on the ballot to raise the bridge tolls. Now, you maybe don't know what Regional Measure 3 is. It raised all the bridge tolls in the Bay Area. And coming from a working class district like mine...
That's an in-between, right? People travel through your district.
Yes, everybody travels through our... Well, that's another issue. But people in our district cross the bridges every day to go to work on the peninsula.
Again, working people who are affected by this gas tax and have to get out of their own community.
That's right. And the bridge tolls even add more because $8 a day to cross the bridge, that works out to $2,000 a year. And the median family income in the Hayward School District is $60,000 a year. That is really tough to get by on in this area. So right there, the assemblyman I'm running against took $2,000 out of the typical family's pocket. I don't understand what they're doing.
Not serving the people, that's for sure.
No, they're not.
Because even when you get people coming into your district to deliver food or groceries or other surplus, type needs to these, markets and everything, it's going to drive their costs up as well.
Right. It raised the cost
of everything.
Diesel, which is what the delivery trucks run on, and that really hurts as far as the grocery stores and the other retail establishments are concerned. But these are just two examples where this guy casually votes the party line and doesn't really think about what it's going to do to the people in his district. And the reason he votes the party line 98% of the time, I figured it out, you have to work hard to get those numbers, is because he wants to keep that $500,000 of slush money that he gets from big corporations and big labor unions. And, honestly, the labor unions, I can't really see that they're getting their nickel out of it because most of the legislation doesn't really affect the working person anyway. It's all this, or positively, it affects them negatively.
Right.
And
Well, it sounds like, he's, the incumbent isn't serving the people. He's not really looking at the issues. He's looking at the party line. And I think that the people, I don't know about in your, your potential constituents. I mean, what is the feedback there? Are they fed up? Are they excited to see that somebody else, there's another option?
Well, most of them don't even know who he is. I mean, some of them have heard about the incumbent congressman because he gets a lot of press on CNN and MSNBC. He's running for president now. But the assembly level fellow, they don't even know his name. If I mention it, they say who, it's not
right.
The main thing that he did. So this is the way it works for the main party in this state. You have to demonstrate some party allegiance, and then you get designated as a endorsed candidate, and that's the road to success. So while my opponent was a city councilman, he put through zoning to allow a power plant on the Hayward shoreline.
I saw that.
Pardon?
I saw that, and it's not
Yes,
pretty.
that's right. And you can see now who's donating to him. Calpine, who built the power plant, and every power plant builder in the state gives the full amount to my opponent. He built that power plant. And it does absolutely nothing for this district. The property taxes are minimal, and they just get, I think, $4 million a year, and that gets folded into the usual property taxes that go to Sacramento, and then some fraction of it comes back to the local area. So we get a power plant, which, by the way, replaced one that was taken out of San Francisco so they could build the new Warriors arena there. So here we have
which I'm sure is beautiful.
Oh, yeah, it's gorgeous. I mean, it's right
on
Property
values won't suffer as a result of that.
And you won't see the power plant that used to be there anymore because they took it down and they moved it to Hayward. So Hayward gets a power plant, and San Francisco gets the Warriors. And you have to look at the entire East Bay. Who is running this place? When I moved here almost 40 years ago, the Oakland area had 3 major teams, or they developed them over that period. They had the Athletics, they had the Raiders, and then the Warriors came along. And of those 3 teams, 2 are gone, the Warriors and the Raiders, and chances are we're going to lose the Athletics because they want to have a new stadium, and, well, frankly, we can't afford to do it. So how stupid can they be, the people who are running this county? But as long as they keep getting that money from the big PACs, the corporations and the big unions, they're happy and they'll get reelected. Right. And it's just terrible.
And they're not serving the people. And I even was reading about where they took some of the tax money and they went and they built a library, which is wonderful. I'm glad they built a library.
Sure. One-time
which is wonderful. But, really as it comes down to your district and the constituency there and serving that area, what has it done?
Nothing. The problem, unless you live in the Bay Area, you don't understand the peculiar problem that we have here, which is on the peninsula, that is easily the wealthiest part of the United States, with the possible exception of Manhattan. So you have enormous wealth over there. Nobody can afford to live there. I think in San Mateo County, something like only 20% of the policemen who can actually afford to live there.
Right.
So everybody in ordinary jobs has to do this commute every day. And for people where I live in the East Bay, on the shoreline, we're stuck in the middle between this enormous draw and the commute that it produces. So we get the pollution from the commuting, we get the noise, and there's a lot of noise from freeways. We've got a lot of them, and we get absolutely nothing for it. So one of the things that I wanted to push through the legislature or somehow institute would be to say, if they're going to start charging tolls on the freeways, then I want toll money to stay here. I don't understand why.
Why wouldn't the tolls go to the infrastructure that these individuals are passing across, or the communities that they're passing across, and the traffic is impacting?
Exactly, right. I mean, we're the guys who suffer through this stuff, and yet the Hayward San Mateo Bridge I think they're making a profit off of it now of about $100 million a year. And where does that money go? It's going to build BART systems in San Jose. That's the big thing in this area. Do you have rail transit for your commute? And it was never extended to San Jose, and so now that's where the money's going. So this poor district, down on its luck, Hayward, is paying for fancy rail systems in San Jose. It just doesn't make sense.
The money should stay local. I mean,
our school district could use the money. I mean, we have no major industry that would pay taxes and put money.
Well, because the power plant that's built there already doesn't. I mean, it has a massive environmental and other kind of impact, and it has other impacts, obviously. But I mean, in terms of revenues.
Yeah, well, the power plant pays about $4 million in taxes a year, in property taxes, which is next to nothing. The library that you mentioned was a $10 million donation to the local library or the local city to build a library. And that also greased the skids on the power plant. But what does that do? When you got a power plant on your most valuable piece of land, it prevents other people from using it for something better. So on the other side of the bridges, we have the headquarters of the Facebook company. There's the headquarters of the Google company. There's a little bit further away is the headquarters of Apple, where they pay employees starting salaries of $250,000 a year. Why can't those companies move to Hayward instead? It would save a commute. Okay, well, they're not going to move to Hayward if you've got a power plant in the middle of your most valuable.
The same reason why they decided to move the power plant from one community to your community.
Exactly.
It's a really difficult spot to be in, but what it's good to hear is that you're not afraid to address the issues and to work with the constituents to figure out what some solutions will be, know, because that's, I think, where the public needs to wake up is our elected work for us.
Yes.
To get the job done and to serve the populace.
Let me put my hat on.
What does it say?
Southern Alameda County first.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. That's
This
fabulous.
is the only hat of this kind in the entire country because nobody thinks of Southern Alameda County.
Right.
When the big, powerful politicians even set foot down here, it's because they're driving through. They're driving through to get to our freeways or our bridges to go to the airport or to go to work. And I want the money and I want the jobs to come here instead
you want
of
them to stay. Well, I think you want some of the money that's being spent as they go across to stay there, and to be able to attract other businesses to your community. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it sounds like you have some ideas to make that happen.
Yes.
Now, where can people find out more about your campaign, Joe?
Well, the best place to do is to start on my website, which is Joseph Gertcher or joegertcher.com. And from there, you have links to my Twitter feed as well. But as you mentioned at the outset, I actually wrote some pretty lengthy position papers that are posted there. It's not a fancy website. I just do the
We don't need frills. We need facts. And we need ideas and solutions.
Old-fashioned HTML. That's what you've got there.
Yes. Okay, good.
So,
well, thank you so much for coming on the Erin Cruz Show with us and speaking with us and sharing about your campaign. Everybody, go to his website, find out more information about him, donate, get involved, especially if you live there. But you don't have to live there in order to contribute to his campaign and help him spread the good word. So take a look, and if you feel inclined, time, talent, treasure, Joe is your man.
That's great. Thank you, Erin. Thank you so much.
You take care, and you let us know if you need anything.
Okay, great. Thank you, Erin.
Bye-bye.
Do you see dead people? Because they're voting in California. Corrupt politicians are using dead people to steal elections. Last October, we learned that a Mexican citizen used a dead man's ID for the last 25 years, and he voted for him multiple times. A CBS investigation found that hundreds of dead people are still voting in LA. By allowing dead people to vote, the Secretary of State is telling you that your vote does not matter. You know what? Your vote does matter. All votes matter. Elections matter. Let's stand together. Let's fight for fair and free elections. I'm Mark Moiser. I'm running for California Secretary of State. I don't see dead people, but I do approve this message.
And now, back to the Erin Cruz Show. Here's Erin Cruz.
Up next is Dr. Kenneth Wright. He is running for U.S. House of Representatives for the United States Congress in District 33. He's running against... Actually, I'm going to let him tell you who he's running against. Please stay tuned for this interview. It's a really, really important piece where we are going to talk about medical coverage. We're going to talk about competition. We're going to talk about many, many different aspects which are unique to Dr. Wright's experience, and really sharing with you how he can win against the corrupt career politician who is not serving the populace, not serving the constituents in the 33rd District. So here he comes. Stay tuned. Make sure you buckle your seatbelts. We have on the line with us right now, we're so excited, we have Dr. Kenneth Wright. He's running for Congress in the 33rd District. I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Wright. I had the opportunity to meet him while I was campaigning for United States Senate. An incredible individual. He's doing really good work, but I want to share with you a little bit about his background, and then we'll talk about his race. But right now, I'm going to read from his website. I mean, there's so much about him. I really had to dial in, so I'm just going to read you the pertinent information, and you guys can go to his website later and take a look. But his website says, Dr. Wright is a pediatric eye surgeon and grew up in the South Bay, graduating from South Torrance High School and California Lutheran University. He finished his surgical training at Johns Hopkins University. Dr. Wright says, quote, as a father, I helped raise 5 children in and around the South Bay. I still enjoy surfing at Torrance Beach. He's a family man. He loves California. He wants to do good work for Californians. That's what it comes down to. And he's a patriot. He also says he is fortunate to have a wonderful career and have treated patients from all walks of life. He says he started a foundation to improve children's eye care at a clinic in Los Angeles for underprivileged children, where he never turns a child away. Never, it says. He authored the major textbooks in his field and published over 100 scientific articles. In 2015, he was invited as a guest of honor lecturer at Harvard University and Boston Children's Hospital. He's participated in numerous international lectures, medical and surgical missions worldwide, including the Middle East, Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Recently, he received a Service Medal of Honor from the President of Panama for over 20 years of service to Panamanian children. Further, he goes on to explain, and I quote, I have dedicated my life to the care and well-being of others. As I reflect both inward and outward, I feel compelled to broaden my social service efforts. There is a real need for honest and forthright citizen leadership in our government. As such, I decided to run for U.S. Congress. I love America, and I sincerely want to do the best for our country. Well, Dr. Wright, we are honored to have you tonight here on the Erin Cruz Show. In addition, we are honored to have you jumping in feet first into a dirty swamp of corrupt politicians, and to do so in a way which will bring back dignity and process and true representation for the people in your district and the constituents there. Thank you for coming on the show.
Wow, what a very nice introduction. Thank you, Erin. I think
we're honored. I mean, really.
A lot of that writing all the books and stuff just shows how much free time I had and basically no life. So,
well, a commitment as well. You
Right.
had a commitment to your work, and there's something honorable there. There really is.
well, you hit it on the head. I mean, I was all in to my profession, love it, still do it. I have
Right.
5 surgeries tomorrow. But in a way, I was wrong. And I think a lot of citizens are wrong in that I felt other people were going to take care of leading the country, leading California. And what I've learned is that if the good people don't step up, the bad people do.
Right.
And if you look at the swamp, that's what's happened.
Right,
like
and we
yourself-
generalize with the swamp, but really it's a sewer. And like
Yeah.
you say, if the good people don't stand up and stand firm, those other individuals will certainly come in and take advantage.
That's what's happened.
Yes.
And so these career politicians, that's all they've ever done is do politics. And not all career politicians are bad. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying is that if it's totally their career and they're on the take and they pander to the power groups with money, they don't work for the people anymore. They don't work for what's good for America. And if you look, that's really what's happened.
Right. A shift of, instead of for the people, by the people, it's for themselves, by themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. For those people who don't know, tell us who you're running against. I mean, this is just amazing to me. And you're doing really well, by the way.
Well, we're running against Ted Lieu. And Ted's a guy who's one of those career politicians. He was a council member in Torrance, and then he was on the state assembly, and then the state senate, and now it's his second term as a congressman. And he's really not addressed the issues of his district, which is includes Santa Monica Venice, where a homeless situation is out of control.
Right.
And they have absolutely no answer.
Right. They aren't looking to solutions. They really aren't. I mean, even on a federal level, working with the states and making sure that our federal tax dollars are spent well and what have you. I mean, there are some really big problems throughout California, and these career politicians, they're not serving the people. And the people include those
Nope.
homeless.
Nope. And they get this whole new deal now, no money bail, which is at the federal level. He submitted 2 bills, no money bail. So criminals don't have to post bail. It's crazy. And now they do it at the state level. So it's the far left Democrat agenda, which includes being so soft on crime. Now in Santa Monica, Venice, Beverly Hills, home invasions have gone up through the roof. And
there's no repercussions for bad behavior and for crime and for breaking the law.
Absolutely. So, if you look at the Democratic agenda, it's really weak. I mean, weak on crime. They don't want tax cuts, which really help the economy. They don't want tax cuts. They're against straws, but other plastics are fine. How do they pick out straws? They're idiots. I mean, their agenda is horrible. And I think the worst thing is this open borders socialism kick that they're on right now. I mean,
Medicare for all.
Medicare for all. And then my opponent, Ted Lieu, has joined the caucus for Medicare for all, which is just a nice way of saying socialized medicine, which means that you are not going to pick your doctor, that our cost to do socialized medicine is going to be through the roof, and our quality's way down, and now you don't have choice.
The government would be in control
horrible.
of literally every aspect of your life. That's what we've seen in the UK. That's what we've seen in Canada. You go from having options to having literally no competition, and costs skyrocket. Government breeds more government, which breeds more government. And
absolutely.
And the way they palette is Medicare for all. It's great. Everybody will receive health care. It hasn't worked at the VA. Definitely, government hasn't worked well with the DMV.
It's been horrible at the VA.
Right.
Yeah, horrible at the VA.
So now, where do you stand? Because you are a doctor. What are some solutions that work that will drive costs down?
Right. Well, this idea of if you're going to have private practice and free market, you need competition. Otherwise, you're going to have monopoly and prices go up. So what's happened is really that the insurance companies have developed a monopoly. And you say, well, how did that happen? Don't we have antitrust laws? Yes, we do, but there are two industries in America which are exempt from antitrust laws. Do you know what those are? Number one, Major League Baseball, and number two, the insurance company. And they did it through the McCarran-Ferguson Act. McCarran-Ferguson Act, McCarran is, if you ever go to Las Vegas, McCarran Airport, he was a congressman in Nevada for years, and they passed a law that exempts insurance companies from most antitrust law. So they can collude and they can price fix. And that's what they do.
So we need price tags. That's what we need, competition and price tags, yes?
We need to repeal the McCarran-Ferguson Act so that insurance companies cannot collude and price fix. That's what they do. And they do it two ways. They do it for the patient, and that's why the premiums are all fixed and they're very high. That's why your deductibles are so high. Our deductibles here are over $8,000-$10,000 for a healthy family. They never even use their insurance. They're always paying out of pocket. And the other way they do it is the doctors. So the young doctors, they want to have any patients, they got to join these insurance companies to get patients, and they fix what they pay the doctors. And now they pay the doctors very little.
Right.
So the insurance companies have it rigged. Right. And so the first step is to have real competition, and that means the McCarran-Ferguson Act. First of all, people have to know about it. It's cheating on the insurance company side.
Right.
Now, what about poor people? They're getting taken care of. Medicare, which is Medicaid, which is in California, Medi-Cal.
Right.
It takes care of poor people. Then they have a second tier. It's called the county system. I worked at LA County Hospital. We have programs. This is a big lie that they don't have programs.
So now if we enforced, if we have these programs already and we enforce the issues with fraud to cut back some of the, bleeding there, we'd be able to help the people who need the help, correct?
Absolutely. Right. We have the services. The big lie there are several lies that Obama made, but President Obama looked into the camera and said, with Obamacare, we're going to take care of, 3 million people that don't have insurance. Well, those 3 million people, many of them didn't want insurance because they have backup. Every emergency room will take you, no matter what, by law. You didn't see dead people before Obamacare in the streets? No. In fact, the life expectancy was actually better before Obamacare. So there was a big lie. You can keep your doctor. Remember, he said with Obamacare, your prices are going to go, your premiums are going to go down, and you can keep your insurance. Well, the complete lies. And this other lie was that people weren't getting care. They were getting care, and they're getting care without Obamacare. So here's the deal. We have right now in the United States a great system of medicine. We have the highest level of medicine in the world. What's killing us is that these insurance companies are cheating us. And we need to have real competition, and that's not going to occur until they are forced to use the same laws that everybody else, and they're not exempt from the antitrust law.
Right. So you're saying the first step is exposing this piece of legislation and getting it in front of the individuals who can make that difference, literally getting Congress to say, hey, this is a problem, we need to fix this. What do you also say then about, I talked to one specialist, an economist, he was a doctor, but he was PhD versus MD. But one of his perspectives was that price tags were also a solution, that a lot of people don't know what the cost is. So if you expose the insurance companies and you also then share with people what things cost, that will alleviate some...
There's a problem with putting price tags on medicine. I'll tell you what. If you take your car to the garage to have it fixed, some noise is bugging you about your car, correct?
You get an estimate.
They're going to get an estimate, and they're going to say, we're going to call you back when we know more.
Right.
Same thing when a patient comes to me. They have a headache. Now, I don't know if it's just a stress headache or they have a brain tumor.
Right.
I've got to figure it out. So I may have to do an MRI scan. I may have to do blood work. I may have to get a referral to an internist to see maybe they have high blood pressure and hypercholesterolemia. My point is, medicine is not like buying a stereo.
Right. Right.
It's very, very different.
Wouldn't you agree, though, that there could be a lot more transparency in terms of what people go in for in receiving care and understanding what it might cost? Because,
well,
you know,
another problem, Erin, is that the insurance companies, you don't know how much they're going to reimburse.
right.
So you go to that MRI scan, and then they deny it, saying, well, we don't think it was justified for a headache.
Right.
So now you're stuck with the whole bill for the MRI scan. So you're right. You don't know, and it's tough. Medicine's not easy. It's complex.
It's not. It's very. That's why they call it a practice, right? Not a perfect.
Exactly.
But really, when I go to the doctor, you know, and I say, well, I need to have this done, and they say, okay, well, your cost on this is not a copayment. It's 20% of the contract rate for that, whatever that is. And then they have to say, but we have to submit it to the insurance because it's all about code and it's all about all of these sorts of things. But it would be good if I knew before I actually, and it's complex, because what if I need that done right away?
Right.
You know, but also too, I mean, this medical coverage, because it's gotten so outrageous and so expensive, it's bled families dry. So I do think we need comprehensive solutions, and I don't think any one thing, except for maybe what you're proposing, which is very interesting about this piece of legislation, is a quick fix necessarily. It's going to take a lot of different things. What do you think about competition across, you know, and buying and selling across state lines for the insurance?
I think it's fine, but it's not going to solve the problem, because the fundamental problem is they're exempt of antitrust law, and they collude in price fix. I mean, it's crazy.
So that's the bigger issue.
Our drugs are so expensive. You know why? There's a middleman in America who's exempt from kickback laws. They don't have that in Canada. So if you are the manufacturer of a drug, let's say propranolol to lower blood pressure, and I'm CVS, you can't directly sell it to me. You go through this intermediary, and you actually give them money to take your product, and I take money to buy it. It's a kickback scheme. The thing is so rigged. It is so rigged. President Trump.
It's a complete disservice to the American people.
Absolutely. Another thing which people don't realize is that the FDA has become a tool of big pharma.
That was what I was going to ask you about, the FDA and all of their schemes, because, you know, certain people I know and who have worked in different industries relating to the healthcare field, they're working on patents, or they're working with this or that, and the struggle to get patents all the way through with the FDA. I mean, it's a racket. It's a racket.
So what happens is that there's actually a law that says if you're going to manufacture a generic, you have less of an FDA burden. But the truth is, if you and I want to manufacture some eye ointment, and it's already on patent, it's already FDA approved, we still have to spend $1 million, $2 million to get it through the FDA again. So it really discourages small companies from bringing out generic drugs, which means that it stops competition. So it's another way that that you're increasing prices because you're limiting real competition.
Right.
And
regulations are costly.
Overregulated.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, they're taxed before you get to anywhere, even produce a product.
But if I was congressman,
when you're a congressman.
Well, people always say that, but I mean,
I know you don't want to be presumptuous, but we need to get Ted Lieu out.
So, well, I would make it so publicized. I would take the cat out of the bag. Let people know what was going on, that they're ripping us off. And it would
you're telling them right now. We're being ripped off. The American people are being ripped off by the insurance companies, the FDA, and the FDA is supposed to work for us, really, and other organizations. I think that we just have to, we meaning myself included, be better at helping you get out that message.
I'm going to ask you why didn't the congressman repeal this McCarran-Ferguson Act? And it's very clear.
Money.
2 Republicans a few years ago tried. They got squashed like a bug, because both the Republican and Democrat Congress people are all paid by the insurance company.
Money, power, and control.
So here's the deal. Some people have come up to me and said, Dr. Wright, we can help you, but we want some favors. And I point my finger right in their nose. I said, listen, you SOB, I don't take bribes, and I don't do quid pro quo. So,
no.
I promise, and
you.
I mean that. I'm not in this for any other thing than I love America, and I would never take money to sway my position. And I would not take money from lobbyists. I'm never going to take it. I think it's wrong.
Right.
We shouldn't allow anybody to take money from lobbyists. It's a bribe.
You're bringing up another important thing, okay? And a lot of people didn't talk about this surrounding Obamacare. I saw it and I was concerned. I voiced my opinion, but I'm a small voice compared to the mighty MSM. But the reality is this: Congress didn't just come up with this, 20-inch stack of, it's bigger than that, thousands and thousands upon thousands of pages of legal documents. Lobbyists did. When they needed different things done, the lobbyists help. All of these attorneys, these big firms, and all these mighty powers, they're the ones that do this. The influence is vast, and that's another component. And they're not serving the American people, they're serving their own interests, and that's a concern. So you're telling me, and I'm understanding this correctly, you're not supportive of lobbyists then, in the big lobby?
No, there's an analogy, Erin. I'm a physician for many years. In the old days, the drug reps, the drug salespeople would try to get you to prescribe their drugs, right?
Right.
So they would take you on a cruise, or you'd go to Hawaii on a golf deal to try to get your favor.
Right.
Well, now they've gone really, really, really against this. There's regulations now. The drug companies can't even give you a fountain pen. Well, if that's true for the doctors, why isn't it true for the politicians?
Right.
Why should they be given money?
Right.
Exactly. They actually give money. It's a bribe. Now, if they want to consult and say, our group wants this because of these reasons, that's fine, but you don't give the congressman money. But you don't give their campaign money.
Right. But there's a lot of that going on.
I can't believe it.
There's a lot of that going on.
It should be illegal.
And in fact, it goes beyond the lobby. It goes to, this is an interesting thought, is that when we talk about the lobbyists and the money, transferring hands to the congresspersons, we have lots of disclosures that the congresspersons have to submit, and financial disclosures, and they all seem to be squeaky clean, but they all seem to be getting rich.
Yeah.
Where's the transparency? Where's the accountability? Fine that they make $200,000 a year for doing a lot of work, traveling. It's very stressful.
It's not
right, but just under with benefits. But I think that it's something that you have to look at, and you have to say, okay, that's a handsome paycheck for hopefully not 20 years like we're seeing right now, but here's the deal. They're all becoming millionaires.
Right. Where's that money coming from?
When does it end? Where does it end? And who's going to stop it? And that's why I'm so glad patriots like you are running for office, because you care about this country. You care about the constituents, your constituents, and that matters. And I can't vote for you, but every decision that you make or that Ted Lieu makes impacts my life up there in D.C. So it matters. Absolutely. And it matters a great deal. Where do you stand on immigration reform?
Right. Well,
I know I'm shifting gears a little bit, but
right. No, that's a good one. I like that one. Look, fundamental to a country is to have borders.
Right.
We cannot have open borders, which my opponent Ted Lieu wants. I mean, basically the line on almost all the Democrats is they don't want to enforce the border.
Right.
So imagine you could just have millions of people coming across, waiting down this country, just changing the whole culture of this country, and not only the expense of it, and not only the danger of having drug people and everything. So I say you have to secure the border. So what's the best way to do that? Well, it works very well in Israel. It's a wall. So I am for wall, at least partial wall, in those areas where it makes sense, where areas where maybe the geographics are such we don't need a wall, fine. But we need to secure the border. That's number one. If you don't secure the border, you don't have immigration policy. Okay.
Yeah, I had one more quick thing.
If you don't, let me just say this, Erin. If you don't secure the border, you cannot. There's no such thing as immigration policy.
Mm-hmm. No borders.
It's the best swimmer over the Rio Grande. It's the best swimmer over the Rio Grande, and they get to cross.
Right, right, and you're bringing up a good point. Is the different terrain around the border region. Technology is a big, underused, under-facilitated resource that we have, especially nowadays. And then, of course, manpower. But in some of those areas like the Rio Grande, I mean, it's difficult to get the manpower in there. But with technology, we could really, really make strides. So I do think it's a balance.
So number one is secure the border.
Yes.
There's experts that can do that. Number two, what do we do about the people that are here contributing? Well, I think for almost 50 years, we allowed people to come over the southern border because we didn't want to do the jobs in the fields and the homes. And frankly, we allowed them to come. And I lived it, Chavez and so forth. We wanted them to come to work in the fields. We wanted them to come.
Well, we have
do jobs
visas
we didn't
for that.
Too. I'm just saying that over 50 years, we allowed people to come. So now they've integrated into our society, and there's something called an implied contract in law, which means it's a contract without verbal or written agreement. It's a contract by action. And by action, we allowed them to stay here. So I don't think we should kick out all law-abiding people who came here, and we allowed them to stay. I think we should have no more. We should obviously secure the border. So those people who have been law-abiding and been here for, let's say, 5 years or more, they can register as a citizen, not a citizen. They can register as a resident, pay taxes, not receive the welfare.
Cut off the bennies and the cookies and the candy and the housing and the subsidies.
Knock it off, and then they can get behind the line. Get behind the line and not cut, and they can work their way to citizenship if they want. There should be a finite time for them to register as a resident. If after 6 months they don't register and they're found, they have to leave. We need to know who's in the country.
I think that's an interesting actual component that you just mentioned there. Good communication, information, transparency, allow for opportunities. But again, if they don't comply for whatever reason, we have to enforce the laws. But the process, a clear process for people to be able to be checked out. That's another thing I've talked to another congressional candidate about is we don't know who's here. So we may have somebody who's working in the field who wants to be a part of, for example, what you had just stated, and they go and they register and they become a resident and then they go through the process. They may not have a criminal record. The next guy or gal might. And we need to know who's here.
Absolutely.
And that's important for the safety of the country and the integrity of our borders and the future generations and other legal immigrants who want to come here. So that's an interesting thought.
By the way, my opponent, he's all for sanctuary cities. Anytime there's a vote on the national level to get rid of sanctuary cities, he's against getting rid of them. He is pro-sanctuary cities.
Wow.
To me, this is absolutely unbelievable.
Wow.
Because if you are convicted of a crime, you have no business staying in our country. You're here illegally in the first place. Then you commit a crime, they have to be out, expelled. So the sanctuary city thing is wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Yes, and I agree. And it's taxpayer money to house them, to feed them, to give them medical care. When they shouldn't even be here in the first place. So yes, I agree with that. So now, where do you stand in contrast to your opponent on, I know this is also kind of a sensitive issue, but I think it's important, I'm kind of, staggering here a little bit with this because it is such a hot topic. where do you stand in contrast to Ted Lieu on the issue of transgender medical treatments? Because I think that he has gone full blast and completely tried to drive people apart and blow, and I know he hasn't talked about it recently, but blow the American people apart and alienate people who are gay or lesbian, you know, and in saying that Republicans don't care about them. And he's used the different things for leverage, but this is one that I think is important. And you're a physician.
Correct.
So
well,
that's one of the reasons why I'm asking you.
That there are a great number of gay people who are conservative and Republicans. And the Log Cabin Republicans, it's a national group, and the local group in West Hollywood actually endorsed me, and they had me speak at one of their events. I believe strongly in, as a conservative, in individual freedom. I mean, that is the basis and what makes our country different from any other country in the world, is how much individual freedom and the importance of individual freedom. You don't ever hear Ted Lieu talking about the importance of individual freedom. You hear talking about transgender, gay rights.
Right, all of the hot tickets.
Individual freedom is very, very important. And it goes both ways. So here's what I think. If somebody wants to be transgender, you know, I don't think it's right. I don't think it's physiologic, but if they really want to do that, I don't think there should be a law against it, but I don't think I should be forced to pay for it.
Now, reassignment surgery, if it's chromosome and there was a basis for a need of adjustment, I personally, you know, there are situations where it could be very well justified that this, you know, an individual needs care. But some of these things that Ted Lieu and other individuals like him are using to divide us are just so off base. So you're in support of if you decide that this is a choice you want to make, fund it yourself.
I think you should fund it yourself. Now, if there's a physiologic reason, like a hermaphrodite who has a real chromosomal or endocrine problem, then it would cover on a covered service in terms of Medi-Cal or Medicare. But if it is particularly your option, and it's not on a chromosomal or endocrine basis, it's just like plastic surgery. Medicare doesn't cover facelift. So,
but they want Medicare, Medi-Cal, the military, everybody to cover all sorts of things.